G'day folks, Scott here. Welcome to another video. Today I'm reviewing Ghost in the Shell. Ghost in the Shell is a live action adaptation of a classic Japanese animated movie that came out in 1995 by the same name of Ghost in the Shell. If you're unfamiliar with the early Japanese animated movies that came out back then, specifically things like Akira and Ninja Scroll, Ghost in the Shell, then you really are missing out on some fantastic movies and I recommend you see them. To be clear though, if you've got younger viewers you're thinking of showing this stuff to, these are not made for children. A lot of early Japanese manga stuff was made for adults and they're very, very explicit. Much later, another company named Studio Ghibli came along, who you may be familiar with, who made fantastic kids movies, at least for the sort of, 10 and up age category. Like, Ponyo and My Neighbor Totoro and Spirited Away and Howl's Moving Castle. If you want to get your kids into some animated movies they may not have seen, I'd strongly recommend them. If you want to get yourself into some, then check out the three I just mentioned. Going back to Ghost in the Shell, like I said, it's an adaptation. It doesn't exactly follow the events in the original animated movie. They added a lot of story content in there, trying to explain more, I guess, the human side of the main character, mostly known as Major throughout the movie. Now, she's played by Scarlett Johansson. The likenesses are pretty good. If you look at a side-by-side comparison of the animated character versus her, it's a pretty close fit. The anime never really focused on her as a person. It was more about the actual story of what was going on. In a very brief rundown, being no spoiler guy, again, I'm going to talk about elements that were in the trailer and perhaps some that were in the original movie. If you want to go in completely clean on this and you have every intention of seeing the movie anyway, go see it. It's okay. It's great to look at. It's a little light on content, but yeah, it's a beautiful movie. Anyway, the concept of the movie is that they've taken a human brain of Scarlett Johansson's character and they put it into a cybernetic body, this like living kind of machine. She has this cool suit that she wears that gives her thermal optic camouflage, kind of like the Predator. She's very badass martial artist. She's, obviously incredibly strong and agile because she's a robot. And the anime was about her being in this, like high-end ops team called Section 9. And they unraveled a mystery and, caught the bad guy, so on and so forth. This also adds an element where they're trying to explain who she was before, like where the brain came from and things. And, like that element of the story perhaps didn't really do it for me. But it wasn't terrible. I've certainly seen worse, especially when it comes to adaptations of, video games and animated movies and things. Like, more often than not, they screw them up royally. And this wasn't a fail. It just wasn't a masterpiece either. If you see this new movie, I'd strongly recommend, if you can track down the original animated one, you should see that as well. There's a lot of very specific shots that were recreated for it, which I think they did really well. A few key fragments of action sequences that came from that original animated movie that they put straight into this. But they added a lot of things on their own. What I specifically liked was the look and design, and more so the execution of the special effects in this movie. The effects were done by Weta, New Zealand company who did, your Lord of the Rings and such, and The Hobbit, Frighteners. So they're like your main competitor to America's major FX studio, which would be ILM, Industrial Light and Magic. In a lot of circumstances, especially with CG characters, if you look at the Planet of the Apes series that they're making at the moment, I think Weta have a head up on CGI effects in some aspects. They also did the, blue people in Avatar. But in this movie specifically, their work impressed me most was the practical special effects. The geishas specifically, there's these robot geishas that are in a particular scene at the beginning of the movie. They were brilliantly done. A lot of the, the suit and the weaponry and how they took ideas for guns, like the suitcase machine guns and things from the original animated movie. There were some really bang-on things in there, and yeah, the effects were great. CGI is mostly hard to compare to other movies because CGI is at a point now where it's pretty believable, and it takes a lot for them to really fuck it up to the point where you just laugh at it and don't think that it's that, well implemented. The cityscapes are really good. It was like a, more down that road for what Blade Runner was going for with the huge advertising and the neon lights and all that. They've definitely gone down that path. Probably more so than I remember in the Ghost in the Shell anime. I don't remember so much like advertising and huge holograms and things like that, but the cityscapes are really impressive. It was really well shot. The action scenes were well done. Obviously, Scarlett Johansson has a lot of practice with action scenes after doing the, Iron Man and Avenger movies and that Lucy film she did a year or so ago. So she's no stranger to that kind of stuff, and it shows. Like, all that stuff was pretty well done. It didn't have like stupidly over the top wire work for the most part. A couple of other key characters from the animated series were definitely in the movie and part of it, which was cool. The spider tank thing, which you see in the trailers, like that doesn't look quite like it did in the animated movie, but it was still in there. But you know, there were these key scenes that I really enjoyed seeing recreated from the anime, but I could have done without a lot of the sort of more emotional baggage that came along with it. But like I said, overall, it's a pretty solid movie. I wouldn't rave about it, but I certainly wouldn't shit on it either. If you're looking for something very flashy and interesting to look at to go and see, you could certainly do worse with your time. You know, in a world where we've got another Fast and the Furious coming up and, you know, all kinds of horseshit movies they spend a lot of money on, this wouldn't have had near the budget that Fast and the Furious had, but I guarantee you it'll have more convincing special effects. So, yeah, that's really all I've got to say about it, you know. Check it out. If you enjoy it, definitely check out the animated movies. Definitely check out those other animated movies I mentioned if you haven't seen them, because they're a really brilliant experience you could be having. I'll be back in a couple of weeks to review Guardians of the Galaxy, which I'm really keen for. It's becoming a struggle to avoid footage and trailers on that because it's just getting bombarded with it, but so far I'm 100% nothing on that. And a couple of weeks after that to Alien, which I'm also very, very keen for. So as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. If you're watching on a web browser, there'll be a button up there. You can click to subscribe to my channel. Feel free to share it with your friends if you think you'd appreciate what I've got to say, and have yourself a good one.